Once every few weeks, we go down to Goulburn to visit Ivan. Over the years, Ivan has received a fair amount of visitors, but as the years have progressed, people have gradually stopped coming to visit him.
Good morning. Thank you. Good morning.
We have to go through many locked sections before we get to where Ivan is. His appearance used to be a bronzed, well-muscled man. Now he is very pale skin. He does not see the sunlight now. He's weak.
And my licence number's on the back of it.
58412.
Oh, he looks like an old man now. I suppose physically he's probably a bit of a wreck there, and mentally, well, I don't know. You know, it's hard to judge somebody, you know, because Ivan's always got this smile. When you say your name is Milat, most people, you know, they're curious, and I don't blame them for being curious. You know, like, this is one of the most horrific cases in Australia, and you can't blame people's curiosity. You know, they all want to know one question: did you think he did it? Well, my answer to that was, I don't know. I weren't there. I can't tell you what went on.
I basically feel in my own heart Ivan has betrayed the whole family and thrown their whole names and every bit of reputation they got. He didn't care if he dragged it through the mud. And I feel like if my family got together and started washing that mud off, life would be better for them, their kids, and everyone around them. Head in the sand, trying to deny the obvious, is just plain ridiculous. And not only that, it really can't settle well with their conscience. And my conscience clear. My conscience clear.
I never really felt angry that it was pointed at me. At my family, a bit. I would say some of them struggled a lot more than I have. And I'm just younger. I didn't see the effect, how much effect it would have on your life, where they already knew that, how much it affects theirs. For myself, I thought, oh well, who cares, it'll be over, but it weren't over. Oh, they were very brutal crimes, that's for sure. You know, done by some sort of madman, for sure. Or a group of madmen, I don't know.
Some had multiple gunshot wounds. One was decapitated, others died in frenzied stabbing attacks. Police suspect some were sexually assaulted.
Simone Schmiedel was repeatedly stabbed in the back. Anya Habshid's head was severed. Despite an extensive search, it has never been found.
Hundreds of police are now involved in the search of the forest about 70 miles from Sydney.
I don't care how long the search takes. I want it as thorough as is humanly possible.
There were so many clues, at last count 1.3 million, the investigation moved to this information warehouse in Sydney.
In a case like this, and the net really is Australia. We have something like 17 million people. We start from there working in.
I've been with the Water Board nearly 40 years. I'm Ivan's younger brother, and I'm one of 14. There was a lot of us, and that's the way it was. We never knew any different. When we were kids, we used to have a market garden and a poultry farm. Well, Dad was a pretty quiet sort of fellow. He'd roar now and again, but, you know, like, he weren't a harsh man.
Dad came from a place they call Korčula, which is a little island off Yugoslavia. Very, very hard-working man. He was very quick to respond if we were fighting amongst ourselves. He didn't like that. He'd come out and he'd whack into us, or he really would. He had a big habit of saying, "Boris, come here, bring big stick with you when you come. Quick, hurry up, come on, I'm waiting, bring big stick." As we got older, It was very hard for my father to keep, or mother to keep control. And because we didn't mix with the mainstream public, and we were close-knit in around the property, and we worked together and played together, we become isolated from other things that were normal. And so we come to the point where we did what we wanted to do. From there, things started going wrong. The police were always coming up there, and some of the boys were running wild.
Like when I was 17, Ivan sort of like stole a car, a panel van. When the police come around, I just said I did it. A bit of misplaced loyalty or something, I suppose, but I was given 2 years and served a bit over a year. And after that event, I'd never got into trouble again. Everybody. Actually, I couldn't name one person in Junction Road at that days there that never had some sort of gun of some sort. Because it was a farm, it was sort of like a rural area.
Ivan had a real fascination with guns, probably more so than all of us. On our way to work one morning, Ivan and Ivan produced this very real short and sawn-off shotgun that he'd stole from work. And I said to him, but that thing will go off and blow your hand off. And he turned around and said, no, it wouldn't. I said, but if you shoot somebody with that, you're going to get 16 to 20 years jail. And he said, no, he wouldn't. And at that point now I said, I'll show you what I'll do with that. And I took it off him and I put my hand out the window with it and I threw it over into the creek. And he was horrified. But that's when I knew I didn't know him. That's when I woke up, wow, something's not right here. This is not like me and Alec rolling drums or racing around the streets doing this sort of silly garbage. You know, this is serious stuff.
Ivan was always immaculately dressed, would never go out with clothes that weren't ironed or washed. His cars were always the same. You would never see Ivan's car a mess. There was never any question that he controlled his life the way he wanted it to be controlled. That he knew where he was going and where he was going to finish up, you know, in life, you know. Women were always attracted to Ivan. We'd go out somewhere, and that was one of the good things when we went out together. He could always attract the women there because he was always a good talker and he just seemed to know what to say, the right things.
When I was about 16 and a half, something like that, I met Marilyn. We eventually ended up living together. She had a child. We had a daughter. That's when Ivan and Marilyn, because they lived on the same premises, I could see something wasn't right there. Any rate, as I suspected, it turned out to be what I believed to be an affair. And from that affair, I do believe to this day that Marilyn fell pregnant to Ivan. So I complained to Dad, and he said to me, Boris, you know, you got to kill him. He said, kill him. He said, you got to kill him. He said, he's rubbish. Gunny, his brother's wife, he's rubbish. But then he went quiet. He's my son. He says, so, he said, I don't want you to kill him because he's my son. In some ways, I wish I had shot him. In some ways, I wish I had. It would have, for what progressed on from there with what's happened later.
An orienteer running through the bush found the badly decomposed body of Joanne Walters on Saturday. Missing for months, her body was wedged under a rock, covered in leaf litter and branches. She died from multiple stab wounds in the back. It appeared she'd been gagged. A second body, showing even more signs of decay, was found on Sunday under a fallen tree. It's expected Caroline Clark's body will be positively identified tomorrow, when dental records arrive from England.
Everyone around our town was talking about the bodies that had been found in Belanglo Forest. Everybody you would speak to had something to say about it.
I don't think anyone had any suspicion at all that Ivan was up to any bad things down there.
I don't believe Ivan had any sort of psychological problem. He was always a bit of a loner, you know, he never confided in people. Like at work, he would never get around with a group of guys and discuss his personal life. He would never do that.
He was a very nice man when I met him, and then from that moment on, we just became friends. And throughout that period of time, Bill and I got married, and Ivan would come to our place for dinner once a week. Then later on, we used to swap books. He always would tell me about books that he has read, and he'd say, oh, you have to read this one, you know, this one was really good.
Well, he used to read war yarns, cowboy books, you know, the paperbacks, from comedies, you know, love stories, murder mysteries, read a lot of them.
Police have broadened their inquiry into the deaths of 2 British backpackers to cover the mystery disappearances of other foreign tourists.
3 young Germans, all in their early 20s, have been missing in New South Wales since last Christmas.
It was clear that a serial killer was on the loose, his victims over-trusting backpackers.
I think it's fair to say that given that we now have 7 bodies recovered, and notwithstanding that we don't know the cause of death in the present case, that we do have a serial killer.
I was the officer in charge of the backpacker investigation. When the second lot of bodies were found in the forest in October of '93, we had an emerging picture of an offender who apparently spent more and more time at the scenes, and that's not inconsistent with serial killers. The pattern they often exhibit is one of increasing control, of going back and after each murder reflecting on the incident, getting a level of satisfaction out of it, but saying, in effect, I can do it better next time.
More human remains were found in the area known as Executioner's Drop. The skeleton was located off a fire trail about 1,200 metres east of where the remains of backpackers James Gibson.
There was nothing at all odd about Ivan's behaviour. In my mind, Ivan never had a secret side to him. He was a very genuine person. What you see is what you get.
Oh, well, everybody could have a secret side that you can hide from somebody.
If there was anything missing with Ivan, I feel like he mightn't have had a conscience, or he didn't. To me, it seemed like he didn't have a soul or a conscience. It felt like as if he was just selfish and did what he wanted to do.
He used to like the excitement sort of life, you know, the always sort of like wanted to be on the edge. He had no fear. There was nobody. It didn't matter who. He was just absolutely fearless. He was too calm. You know, very calm person, you know. He's like, why he liked to live on the edge, he was very calm, you know, like he could sort of like be up 100 stories and walk around the edge of a building there and just be calm and laugh and joke about it. You know, it's just, that was his nature.
Took a lady down there one time, and Pam was her name, and Ivan walked in and he walked past Pam and she turned around and said, God, all my blood just went cold then. I said, well, when he walked past me, I don't like him, she said.
When my children were babies, Ivan was one of my babysitters, and he used to look after my children quite a few times.
Give you a hand in anything you were doing, in general, around the house. And so I found him a very good fellow myself. I wish he was out here.
When I heard about the so-called murders down there and the bodies being found, I had a notion that something weren't all right in the camp. just had a notion.
Police investigating the murders of 2 English tourists are seeking a man described as tall, with an athletic build and short hair, cropped at the sides.
When I first heard the descriptions of the suspect of the Belanglo murders, I sort of just shook my head and thought, that's not right. A profile of the person was over 6 feet tall, powerful, athletic build. I thought to myself, why would he have to be 6 feet tall? I don't see where size has got anything to do with it. Because you've got to remember, you're dealing with a maniac. And I had a feeling they were wrong. But that didn't mean that I had enough evidence to go to the police. It was just a paranoid mind carrying on, telling me all the things that I've known over the years and all of what I've been hearing has started to build in my mind.
I think a number of us on the investigation got the feeling that the attitude of the Milat family generally was that you didn't interfere in other people's business, that they had strong suspicions that Ivan was committing serious crimes and probably violent crimes, and certainly 1 or 2 members of the family suspected that. But they chose not to inquire into it and they chose not to do anything about it.
You've got to remember that it doesn't matter what happened, nobody in that family would point a finger at anyone. It was their loyalty towards one another.
The Milat family became interested in the investigation very quickly. Their attitudes about family relations and that were a bit unusual perhaps, and the family was generally known in the area and by police to be quite eccentric. From about 1962, Ivan was constantly in trouble with both the police and the courts. He was continually committing housebreaking, car thefts, other stealings, armed robberies, and then in 1971 he was arrested and charged with the rape of 2 young women down around the Goulburn area. Some years later, he was acquitted of those rape offences. We thought, given what had happened, that the person must have lived somewhere between Liverpool and Goulburn. It also became quite obvious that the person was very familiar with firearms. We also became convinced that the person was, in a sense, a control freak, that they were spending a lot of time at the murder scenes and was probably like a loner, a control freak. So you were narrowing it down step by step.
As the Belanglo thing unfolded, I become very nervous about it all and I changed my name. Figured that I weren't going to have no part of this. My gut feeling was that something wasn't right in the hen house, I can tell you. I only changed it a month before this happened, before they arrested Ivan. Only a month. And I knew in my heart something was happening. I just knew it.
In early 1994, the case took a very significant twist when we were contacted by a young person named Paul Onions, who was a British person and had been a backpacker out in Australia a few years earlier. He told a story of an attempted abduction in the Belanglo Forest area and identified Ivan. At dawn, in late May '94, we started the raids of the Milat family homes. The offender in these matters was likely to be a control freak and would likely have property of the victims in and around his home.
A 49-year-old man is in custody this morning, waiting to appear in court after weekend raids by police from the Backpacker Murder Task Force.
Bill and I were down the coast. We had an on-site caravan down at Lake Tabourie. And this particular morning, we were listening to the news. It was John Fay's voice, and he was saying, "We've caught him." And my first words were to Bill, "Thank God for that." Life can return to normal down in the Highlands. It wasn't until about 1 hour later, Bill and I had been for a beach walk, and we had come back and we saw a detective car pull up beside us. And this detective saying, "Your brother has been arrested," and I just put those two together and I could not believe it. I kept saying, "Not Ivan, not Ivan. It's just not Ivan. It can't be anyone else in this world but not Ivan." And I just went to pieces. I just crumbled.
And I tell you, it knocked me for a six there, you know, and because I didn't know, had no idea what was going on.
And then from then on they just kept coming, or helicopters started flying straight overhead. And then from then on they were just all over the yard, searching everywhere. I'm not quite sure what they were looking for. I was just grabbing all sorts of stuff.
What we did find was a veritable goldmine. At several of the properties we found clothing and other things, backpacks and that, belonging to various victims.
The house belonging to Ivan Milat is now being examined brick by brick. The investigation is far from over.
I first met Ivan Milat at the Campbelltown police station when he'd been arrested. He struck me simply as being a very silent type who lacked any form of emotion, but also gave a very strong air of confidence, and you had the feeling that he was saying in his own mind, they haven't got anything on me, they're going to have to let me go, I will beat this. And that was very clear from his attitude.
We visited Ivan when he was in the jail in Sydney, and during that visit I wanted and I needed to ask him, did you do this? I needed it for a closure for myself. I needed to find out whether this was going to be the last time I saw him or not, because I'd already made up my mind. If he had done it, that was it. I was not going to visit him anymore. And he just turned and he said to me, Carol, I didn't do it. And I just needed to hear him say those words. And he has said those words for the last 10 years.
When they said it was Ivan Milat, that was it. I knew then that Ivan would never see the light of day, like out in the streets again. But the whole family sort of went into denial. I didn't. I noticed the rest of the family swung in behind him real quick. They all swung in real quick, raised money, did this, got solicitors, barristers, did everything.
Mr. Martin asked, what if Mr. Onions has wrongly identified Mr. Ivan Milat because of family resemblance to Richard Milat? He asked if perhaps Richard was Paul Onion's attacker.
During the trial, the lawyer pointed his finger at Richard. We just could not believe that he was going to point the finger at one of the brothers. We were shocked that he would do that because it absolutely shattered Richard, and I had never seen Richard looking like stone. He was absolutely like stone.
Yeah, we go down to the courthouse and having some sort of meeting and going to say that it weren't him, it might have been his brothers. Well, I was not fazed by that at all. I got, like I said, every day of anybody went missing or anything happened, I was working at my boral job. I was at home with 10 people.
For his part, Ivan Milat sat quietly during most of this morning's appearance, but broke his silence to tell the court he was happy with Mr. Bowes' submissions.
I honestly believed he would be found innocent. Honestly believed. And Andrew Bowe rang us early and he said, OK, the verdict's in. He said, get ready. So Bill and I were diving into clothes, and next thing there's a news flash and it said that he'd been found guilty. I was in the process of getting dressed at the time and I just froze. I just could not believe it.
51-year-old Ivan Milat was this morning found guilty of murdering the backpackers in the Belanglo State Forest, south of Sydney, between 1989 and 1992.
Having seen Ivan, I didn't expect him to admit to anything, and I did not expect him to show any remorse.
Well, I honestly thought that he'd have been found not guilty, and I was surprised as anybody when they said he was guilty.
It didn't even faze me one bit, because basically I had him locked up and convicted the day he was arrested. There's no way that anyone's going to take anyone's life, because life is very precious, not only for man, for animals and everyone. Everything in my books. And it really is. You don't play around with murder. You don't play around with that. And you can't. And I would like to think Mum wouldn't have either. I would like to think that. But my bones tell me that Mum's loyalty is extreme. I just thought, what a relief. Relief that this horrible thing wouldn't go on anymore.
I can't just put this behind me because it is something major that has happened in my life and I don't know how to go forward.
Hello. Oh, hi, Ivan. How are you going?
Ivan gives me a phone call when he makes a request to use the phone, and he has surprised me some mornings, and he's rang me a couple of times during the week.
Oh, you noticed in the letter too, I asked you about the eye business. You know, I remember you telling me about the eyes.
So they're still doing things to
We
it,
just have general chats, and with Ivan's permission, I have also recorded some of those conversations that we have had.
What do you do day to day in there?
Nothing. You know, you can sort of go around and run around if you want to. You know, like I just spent this morning, because they changed my cell, just giving it a mop out, a bit of a clean out. You know, I go to town on that because you just sort of get all this detergent, throw it in one end and just scrub it, you know, get out to the other end. That's how you do it.
Oh, right.
I suppose life would be easier if we could accept that he has been found guilty and has done this crime. But that is not the case. He's, in our eyes, he's not guilty of it. And until the day that we find different, we will support him.
And do you think that you know who may be responsible?
No, I got no idea. You know, I can think of all sorts of things, but no, not really.
I've never believed that Ivan had anything to do with this, right from the word go. When somebody's done some things like this, surely there must be some signs. But Ivan has never been any different over the last 25, 30 years. I can never be 100% sure that Ivan never did this. The evidence is all circumstantial.
I think it's time for them all to stand up and say, guilty as convicted. And I'm one person that does it. These people that are in denial of him really got to get their act together. They really do. I mean, to say, this is not just a murder. This is well above it. But I can tell you now, if this had happened to one of their kids, 1/10 of the evidence, they would accuse him straight away. They've got to really put the bigger picture on. And the bigger picture is 7 people lost their lives in a horrific, cold-blooded, terrifying. It's not as though you come and shot some guy walking down the street. This was terror. Then you've got to move on to their parents and their loved ones. Their lives have been destroyed. And he has destroyed the Milat's life as well. And that's where I feel very strongly about it. And I don't care if any member of my family ever talks to me again. I got to express my horror for what he's done. I really do.
We are not convinced that the belongings found in Ivan's home belonged to the backpacker victims. We are all convinced that they were put there by the police. We believe that Ivan was framed. We believe that the stories that Ivan has told us, he saw one of the detectives taking 2 bags from the boot of his car. Those bags were taken inside his house, and then all of a sudden, parts were being found in the house.
No, I've got no comment on any aspect of the operation at this stage.
It's absolute nonsense, and those members of the Milat family who say that should be asked to explain how it was then that Alex Milat was able to give us the backpack of one of the victims, and that had been given to him by Ivan, and also how Ivan's girlfriend at the time was in possession of some clothing belonging to one of the victims, and that had been given to her by Ivan. There is overwhelming evidence that Milat was the murderer, and they are the simple facts of the case. I can understand how a family would have difficulty believing that a member of their family could commit such atrocious crimes without the feelings of remorse. At the same time, I think, being a family member, you can tend to live in a state of denial about it.
I've got to wonder why they're still campaigning for Ivan when it's such a fruitless cause. Any one of them that are in denial, I would feel like they're all carrying, every one of them are carrying a load they don't need to be carrying. And they could throw it off their back tomorrow just to come out and do what I'm doing. Well, all they have to say to themselves, he's in there for a reason. If anyone's out there that's thinking that I am revengeful to Ivan over past affairs with my wife, that issue was finished and dead a long time ago. Even if I didn't forgive him for what he'd done, I thought he was the biggest, pardon the language, but the biggest bastard in the world. It still wouldn't change the issue that he's guilty.
You know, the final day of the trial, were you really confident that you'd be found innocent?
I was fairly confident going on the evidence. That's what I was going on. You know, the DNA and everything else. But I couldn't count on the judge.
What about the DNA?
Well, it wasn't mine, was it?
Yeah, well, I realise that, yeah.
And I thought the jury was going to see that.
I believe that Ivan's lack of emotion, feeling, his desire to be in control, to dominate, means that he will use anyone in any way that he can, and that includes members of his direct family and his extended family. And I think they're falling for the trap.
No, I got no real doubts on brother. It makes me wonder the police did go and arrest him. Just give some credit. But I just figured they got the days wrong and some stuff. I couldn't see what reason he'd have to do something like that. So I got no doubts whatsoever that he's innocent. No, I don't think he did it or had anything to do with it. Myself. To me, he just weren't that type of person. To myself, anyway, as far as I know him. But you never know what somebody's like.
Those engaged in the prosecution, defence and even the judge, admitting that Ivan Milat did not act alone. In short, a killer remains free.
Justice Hunt agreeing with the Crown that Milat must have had an accomplice.
Some of my brothers have been accused of being involved. The spotlight has been on one of my brothers in the form of Richard. I don't believe that for 1 minute.
But when asked by the defence if he remembered saying there are 2 Germans out there, they haven't found them yet, he replied, I don't recall.
Richard has never been in jail for anything serious, to the best of my knowledge. You know, he's a larrikin, there's no doubt about it. Some might even say he's a bit of an outlaw, but he's not. I've never seen this man be cruel or pushy or rapist in any way. If they had any evidence on Richard, they would have charged him. There is nothing there.
Harley! Harley, Harley! I knew it weren't me, so I weren't worried. Well, I never did anything wrong, and that's all to it. I never did anything. I'm sure by now, if I did anything, they'd have found out. If they thought I was there or anything to do with it. So they did a very fair investigation on me and checked in every which way. Every one of the times they were interested in, I was sort of working or somewhere with a lot of people most of the day.
Harley, get over here.
So all that bit about them putting it onto me just didn't really wash at all. It didn't count.
Mr Tedeschi said the defence would try to suggest that one of Mr Milat's brothers, Richard or Walter, could have been responsible.
I never argued that in the first place. I don't know how that come in. That I was totally amazed when I was sitting there and I heard that. I had no idea. Because my basic defence in my trial wasn't me. I didn't know who did it. It was up to them to prove my guilt, not for me to prove my innocence.
I think it's fair to say over time there were changing attitudes among the police as to whether there were one or more offenders. At the end of the day, my view was, and the view of most people, was that there was only the one offender, and that was Ivan.
There'd be no way that Ivan would do this with anybody else. He's always been a bit of a loner there, would never do anything with his brothers there, and Ivan simply is one of these people, he just don't trust anybody.
I have no doubt in my mind that Ivan operated alone, fully, by himself, secretively, calculating everything and getting whatever he got out of this thing all by himself.
The impact this has had on our life has been immense. I will not leave the home alone now. I always go with someone. I just do not have the confidence to go by myself out of my home. My home is my sanctuary. I feel a sense of fear, and it's very overwhelming, and I have had anxiety attacks because of it. And I've had many days when I have just sat and cried because I just can't cope with how our life has changed. I don't think there's a waking moment when any of us have put it behind us. It is always there, and the pressure behind it is just immense.
I basically feel, since the murders, I am a lesser person than I should be, and it has destroyed my life. To know that a member of your family has done such an evil deed, it's a bit like being married to Hitler's daughter. Ones who come down more often, visit Dad and Mum's grave. I myself have never been in jail, apart from not paying a fine. So I spent 1.5 days in jail. I'm a total victim of a character assassination by association. I'm running around like in a circle saying, I'm innocent. I got people saying, I knew about it, you're a Milat, you're all the same, you've got no feeling, no heart. The fact is I am totally destroyed. For me to start thinking about how a young girl died or a young man died or a young teenager, it's just really too hard for me to handle. What do they want me to do? Go and throw stones at my mother's grave or my father's grave or something? What do they want to do? Just throw the stones at the guy that needs them. Throw stones at the jail wall or something. It's not any member of the family except one. One member of the family was a rotten egg, psychopath, brought about only by his actions and the way he interpreted the world. And that was it.
Yeah, I was very happy to get married 1 year ago, to keep my life going back on track and get back into normal sort of living. So it's all been very good.
I now declare to be husband and wife.
Hey. Well, it helps you forget about it because you just got nothing to do with that much. Now you've got all the other things you're doing with your wife and that.
I never actually had anybody sort of say to me, can't believe that you're marrying into that family. There was a few people that probably looked at me a bit different. They looked down their nose at you, but to me, what their reaction is didn't really worry me at all. I didn't care. So I was marrying Richard and that was all that mattered to me. I know that Richard wasn't involved in this and I wouldn't have anything to do with anybody that I believe was involved in taking a life or anything like that. I don't know much about Ivan. I haven't actually met Ivan. I know he has been accused of being the backpacker killer.
Have you ever been to Belanglo Forest?
Not so much. The only time I went there once with Ellie. You know, you go there, there's a shooting club down there. It's just a long straight old road. There's a road that goes off the highway. I know where it is because we worked on the highway all that along there, you know, big sign there.
Ivan was very much a control freak. If you look at the history of the backpacker matters and a couple of other matters we know about, it seems that what the trigger was, that he was not in a stable relationship or a relationship where he appeared to be in control. They all occurred when his relationship with a woman appeared unstable, and the backpacker inquiries occurred after he was told that he was to be divorced.
When his marriage to Karen broke down, Ivan was shattered, absolutely shattered, and all he could say is, "I can't believe it. I just can't believe it." He said, "I thought I treated her well, but I just can't believe it." He was just a very shattered, broken man.
So was it a particularly hard time in your life?
Traumatic, I suppose. Virtually, it's just like a death in the family, I suppose. That's how it struck me, you know, and sort of a loss. I loved her, and obviously she didn't love me or whatever. I had no idea. I got the ride of my life, so to speak.
He had lost control of his family life once his wife told him she was going to divorce. His way of asserting control again was to kidnap or abduct, treat the victims how he wanted to treat them, whatever that was. They were then under his control completely. I'm personally satisfied that Ivan was bisexual, that his interest in sex was not about love or sexual gratification, rather it was about control and the release of the pressure that built up inside him because of that desire for control.
I would say it's just like an urge. To him it may have been a sexual urge. It may have been something. It may have been the urge you get when you spin your wheels and smoke your wheels up in your car.
Having killed, he is calm, he is back in control, he is normal, if you like, for a while again until he feels he has to kill. So having made the killings, he then attends a family function. He's calm, he's normal, he's part of the family.
If I found that Ivan had done it, I would reflect on him looking after my children, being in my life, being in my home, sitting at my dinner table, long conversations on the phone. I would feel so sick knowing that the man that I was sharing my time with had done this crime. I could not cope with that.
If Ivan had done these, he's definitely in the right place. Mind you, I'm a believer of capital punishment, you know, like an eye for an eye, and I would have no dramas. It would be terrible, but the punishment's got to fit the crime. And if they choose that the punishment is that he's to be locked up there forever, then so be it. I would still go down and visit him there and tell him how cranky and angry I'd be there, but I'd still go down and see him.
If he did it, he must have a mental problem. I can't see in his upbringing. To do something like that, you must just have a mental problem. I figure only a homicidal maniac. A normal person wouldn't do it.
Sometimes Ivan, when he's seen a serious situation, he would think it funny. He'd just laugh at it and think it was funny.
Authorities believe at least 250 people, most of them children, died in the Russian school siege.
I see they sorted that second problem out, you know, the Russian problem. I think we didn't need guns for and they killed about 200 kids.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Oh.
This is what the reports are saying. Yeah, they started yesterday. You know,
Oh,
and boom, boom, boom.
God. Oh, that's horrible.
They ain't mucking around. But geez, they made a mess of the place.
Did they really?
Oh, yeah,
Oh, that's
like
horrible.
Baghdad, the way that school buildings look now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
My biggest fear now would be that they all turn on me for what I'm saying. But if that's got to be the case, I suppose that'll be a relief too. I've decided to rebuild my life and get on with it and put this whole damn thing behind me. I have met people in the past and then they start asking questions who I really am. You know, what am I hiding? And I can't tell them. That hurt me because I had to walk away because of who I am. And this is one of the reasons I decided to come in and state who the hell I am. I'm Boris Milat, the brother of Ivan Milat. I am not responsible for his actions. I'm only a relative by accident, and that's it. And I am not condone anything he's done. Come very soon, all my particulars will be changed, my deeds, my titles, and everything will be changed back to where it's supposed to be. This is where I've come to live and start my new life off again here. I've got a really nice patch of dirt here, 1.5 acres, a little creek running through it. I live in the caravan over there, and I'm constructing a new cottage here that I hope to have finished by Christmas, and it's all looking quite good at the moment. I'm very pleased with the way it's all going. As long as the rain stays away, I'm okay. I know I'm a good person, and I know the basic principal family of the Milats are basically good. If I was talking to Ivan now, I would tell him, stop the denial. There's a time to square up, and the time is now to square up. And by squaring up, even if you didn't want to talk about what you've been charged with and what you've done, if there is anyone else out there that you've done this to, and I believe there is, his best shot is to sit down, realise what he done, write down a statement, and hand it in to whoever needs to hear it.
20 years after their daughters disappeared, these Hunter Valley parents are still searching for answers.
One cannot discount the involvement of Ivan Milat in any of the disappearances.
Today named Ivan Milat, who is serving life for murdering 7 backpackers as a suspect.
It's fair to say that I think of the unsolved murders, there are probably 3 or 4 where we would say Ivan is highly likely to have been the offender.
Counsel for the families implored Milat to answer more questions.
During the course of the inquiry, and since I had met a number of friends and relatives of the victims, I think they would like to hear that final admission from Ivan so they could fully close the case, but that's not likely to be forthcoming.
When you lose your child in these circumstances, it's there forever. And I would like people to know how much Milat destroys family like ours.
It has destroyed more lives than just the children's.
And he possibly believes that he's done nothing wrong. He possibly believes, what the hell am I in jail for? They've got nothing on me, I shouldn't be in here. That's what he's thinking.
I believe that in his own mind, he keeps telling himself that he knows more than us, therefore he's in control, therefore he's winning, he's had a sense of victory, they haven't been able to find everything. The problem for him is that if he does make those admissions, he's in lost control.
Ivan will die in jail, and that is very sad. I always hoped that before Mum passed away that he would have been out to be with all the family, and that was Mum's one wish, but sadly that wish wasn't granted.
I believe Ivan is a person who has no emotion or remorse for anything he does. The safest place for him is in jail, never to be released. And if he were released, I have no doubt that sooner or later he would kill again.
Well, hope that he gets out. The reality of that is nil, but, well...
I would say to Ivan, put closure on everything. A letter, anything, some way, find a way to clear up some of these things. This is not the kid stuff we grew up with. This is serious things. Help the mums and dads out there. Close down, mend their hearts a little bit. Some sort of secret way you can do. I'm sure you can come up with it.
You know, I can think all sorts of things, but I haven't got no idea. I know they...
Your call has been terminated by the Department of Correctional Services.